So the Toronto Raptors, as of recording, they are 15-25, which is not good. And no, they've been better lately. They made a trade to end the year. OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn to the Big Apple, New York City, in exchange for Emmanuel Quickley and Mississauga's very own RJ Barrett and a second-round pick. And it's definitely changed how the team has looked, but the results are still also not great. So what do the Raptors do? Do they trade Pascal Siakam, expiring contract, call it a season, focus on development, or do they say, the team's looked a lot better with the new players, maybe we can salvage it? Here to take a stab at that question and many others is a Canadian podcasting legend. Right now you can catch him on No Dunks with The Athletic, but he's been on the podwaves for nearly 2 decades. He's the second most famous person from Stratford, just under Justin Bieber. J.E. Skeets, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. How's it going? What an intro. I love that. that Bieber shot hurt, but probably true.
Well, it's a close one. It's a close one. I think you can make it up there. I believe in you. Before we get into the Raptor stuff, I do got a fanboy for a minute. I remember when you guys were on the Score, and I visibly remember the Like a Bosch song, spoof of Like a Boss, and also the No One Man Should Have All That Pasta with Andrea Bargnani. So you guys have been doing some great stuff for years, so it's definitely an honor for me to chat with you here today.
Yeah, you are definitely aging yourself there by referencing those 2 clips, but I appreciate that. That's a long time ago now, back in the Score days. But I'm glad, we do get a lot of the Like a Bosch, sort of shout-outs, but I like that you got the Bargnani All-Star video there. No One Man Should Have All That Pasta, which is I think the funnier of the 2, and it had incredible graphics for that one and a funny song, but appreciate it.
Good. How does it feel? You were talking, I was listening to your guys' podcast on No Dunks this morning. We're recording this on Tuesday. You've been doing this for nearly 2 decades, almost as old as some of the players who are in the league now. How does that feel?
Yeah, that's right. We were referencing Gigi Jackson, who's the youngest player in the NBA, who had a good game the other night and had a big TNT moment where he's talking to Shaq, and he's just 19 years old. And then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, yeah, we started podcasting about the NBA in early January 2006. So, it's not that far off. That's, I'm horrible at counting these years, but it's 18, 19 years we're getting at, nearly 2 decades, like you said. It's amazing. I just still sometimes pinch myself that we still get paid to do this and have made it a career, and it's taken us obviously sort of to different spots in North America. I live here in Atlanta because of the show, and still do a show with my buddies, and someone pays me to talk about basketball that I love. So it's amazing.
That's definitely the dream. Do you have a favorite? There's so many moments. I know there's so many moments, so it's probably hard to choose one. But is there a moment from all that where you're like, wow, this was super cool. I can't believe I've gotten to do this.
Wow, that's a great question. Anytime we've ever had a legend on our show, especially when we were at NBA TV as the starters, that was always surreal, and I had to always be holy, we're talking to Dikembe Mutombo or Isaiah Thomas or Charles Barkley or Shaq. We did fun videos with Shaq where he's giving us fake wedgies and stuff, and it's these guys were my heroes, and then not to mention then Canadian heroes like Steve Nash and stuff that we had opportunities to do podcasts with. But I will say, if I have to pick one, the most surreal moment was while we were wrapping up being the starters at NBA TV, the Toronto Raptors were winning a championship, and it was just the weirdest timing of it all, and that we got to go to the games, and I was in Jurassic Park the night they won, and so that's just so weird to me that, it might, who knows, it could be the only championship I ever see for the Toronto Raptors. We never know. And that it happened while I was doing a show for NBA TV is, that one is near and dear to the heart just because they went on to win.
Very, very, very fair on that one. You actually, perfect segue mentioning Shaq and the wedgies. They say, legendary players like Shaq left their mark on the game. You can really see that with players like Shaq. You mentioned Charles Barkley, Steph Curry. The people who are the best have left a permanent mark. Mm-hmm. And I would say you guys have also left your own permanent mark with the term wedgie. For those who don't know, that's when the ball gets stuck between the rim and the backboard. Mm-hmm. And you guys really coined out, everyone says that. You listening to broadcasts across the NBA, across international. When I worked for the University of New Brunswick doing their games, I called it a wedgie. So tell me about the origins of the wedgie.
Yeah, it was the real credit has to go to Ralph Lawler, who was a long time Clippers broadcaster, and that is where we first heard it. And this is like over a decade ago, and I had never heard it referred to as that, and we thought it was amazing, obviously ran with it, and then we decided that we would start tracking wedgies on the show, and we've been doing that for a very long time now. We have like a database, and we know how many people like have had the all-time wedgies and how many happened in one game and all this stuff, all these weird stats about it. And you're right, it's one of these things that just caught on in the NBA lexicon, and that will be one of our legacies, that we helped popularize the term wedgie. And it's really fun now when it happens. If I'm in an arena watching, let's say, the Hawks play live, and it happens, like you hear multiple people yell out wedgie. Like it's a fun thing to scream. And even if I play pickup ball and it happens, people like go nuts and everyone wants to take a photo or whatever. So yeah, it's one of the things when we're finally done with doing this podcast that I hope will remain. I don't see why it wouldn't, because it's so perfect to describe what it is. But yeah.
Perfect. It's perfect. It's fun to say. Really can't go wrong with it. Now,
That's right.
Let's get to the Toronto Raptors. Another loss last night against the Celtics. But the team has, as I mentioned in the intro, looked a lot different with Quickley and Barrett. The offense really looking a lot different. How would you rate, I think we're 7 games in since this trade.
Yep.
How would you rate this trade so far for the Raptors?
I think I'm high on it. I mean, yeah, ultimately it's not like they went 8-0 after the trade. In fact, they still have a losing record, I believe. They had a rough road trip here on the West Coast and played some close games and tough teams, and ultimately are 3-5, I think, since the RJ and IQ coming over to the Raps. But it's such a much more enjoyable watch. Like you said, the offense, to have guys that can actually create their own shot, who can shoot a little bit, that's refreshing. Obviously, the Knicks are pumped with what OG's bringing them, and we know as Raptors fans how good he is. And when you slot him in as like the third or fourth best player offensively, and you make him the best defensive player on your team, he's incredible. So it's worked out really well, I think, for both teams. It's just now we go through this with Siakam and whether the Raptors will ultimately look to deal him in the coming weeks here before the trade deadline or not. But it's more fun to watch. That we can, I think, all agree on. And it looks like they've got, knock on wood here, but 2 youngish stars to pair with Scottie Barnes moving forward in Quickley and Barrett. So they've been incredible. They've actually exceeded my expectations when it comes to, shooting numbers and efficiency and scoring for both those guys.
One of the things I'm kind of disappointed we haven't gotten to see more of is because Jakob Poeltl's been injured. I found he really kind of upped his game with Quickley being here. They didn't really have a pick and roll partner with him after, Fred went to Houston. So to see him be able to run the pick and roll and not just score off that, but he's so great at like making those passes from the post, getting other people involved that way, but just that kind of extra weapon in addition to, Quickley and Barrett both are creative scorers, a lot more creative than OG was. OG obviously, great at what he does, great corner shooter, great defender, but yeah, we just haven't had that creativity on the team in so long. So I think, it's going to be interesting now to see what Masai Ujiri does with the next, month or so ahead of the trade deadline, because, on one hand you can say, well, like you said, they've been a lot better. They've look better even if their record hasn't showed it. So do they keep Pascal? He seems to be partial to just waiting and seeing how things go, or is the right move to go ahead and make that trade and kind of hit the not total reset button, but do a similar trade where you're trying to lift up Scottie and build the team around that. What do you think is kind of the direction they might go there?
It's a tough spot to be in. Look, there's no two ways about it. Like it's because of the contract. This is the issue, that teams are reluctant to give up a lot for a player of Pascal Siakam's talent. An all-star, an all-NBA level guy who's still really good defensively, who can fit into basically any team out there and raise, their ceiling, whether they're a good team to a great team or a great team to like a championship contender. I truly believe he could, but it's like, we're doing that for a rental. And like he, by all accounts, the reports we're seeing, he keeps telling these teams, I'm not giving you a verbal agreement. Like, Kings, trade for me. Pacers, trade for me. Hawks, trade for me. Go nuts, but I'm not telling you I'm going to be signing long-term here. So they're putting the Raps really have put themselves in this position, right? By maybe waiting too long to trade Pascal Siakam, or then not coming to an agreement on any sort of extension. And that's sort of the crux of this too. Are there bad feelings between Siakam and Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster? I don't know. It's almost like they've avoided talking about this contract extension, and he wants a max. He's looking to really cash in. The Raps probably don't want to give him that, but he's somewhere. He's still a lot of money type player, right? He's at $40 million, I would say, easily at what he still is, but he's 30. So I would do this. I would trade him. I really would, but I would have to get back one or two very intriguing young prospects, like be it a Kuminga, be it a Josh Green, be it a Jarris Walker, in a perfect world, Benedict Mathurin, but I don't think the Pacers are giving him. I'm looking at something like that where it's like, oh, that's a really talented young player or two, and then a pick to move forward. And if it's not there, it's not there, and maybe you just have to bite the bullet, give him the contract extension, and then look to sort of move him, next season, I guess. But it's not a great spot to be in for the organization.
One of the teams I think might be really interesting to watch, and this is no additional knowledge, but I think with where Philadelphia is, they're a team that they want to win right now. They could win right now. Having that, they have the kind of space to take on a player like Siakam. They've got a ton of picks. You're probably, if you're the Raptors, you're not getting any young players out of that deal. But like you said, where it could be a bit of a rental. Teams like Indiana or even who else, like Golden State Warriors, they don't really want to just get a year because chances are they're not winning it this year. Like the Pacers, they're great, but they're not in contention. Whereas if you're Philadelphia, you could maybe convince yourself, hey, let's get him in here. We could win it this year. We got to compete with Milwaukee and Boston. We got to do something. Then maybe there's something there, but in that deal, you're not. If you're the Raptors, you're not getting any players back, which seems like that's what they want to go for.
Yeah, that's the hang up there. From Philly's side of things, 100% agree. They should be looking at this like this is their Kawhi opportunity. It's like, wow, we get him, even if it's just for this year, we could win the title. Like, we could at least get to the finals. Obviously, they've never even gotten to the conference finals with Embiid. So that would be sort of a no-brainer. My hang-up, because Taz keeps saying that on No Dunks, but I'm like, what is Philly offering? I mean, yeah, there's some draft picks, and then what? Like, DeAnthony Melton, he's good, but he's not moving the needle. Like, he's a very solid, he feels like he's 35 years old the way he plays, but he's 25, so he's not old. But it's like, that to me that's not, like, enticing enough for a player of Siakam's caliber, like, in my personal opinion. So it's got to be a younger guy with more upside, because Melton's just going to be a fine player for a long time. But I just can't come together and then Tobias Harris, obviously, maybe for contract reasons, and then that's just expiring money, and then it's what are the Raptors going to be doing with that? So while it makes sense from Philly's side of things, I can't get there for an enticing package personally for the Raptors to help out a division foe in giving them Siakam. So that's my hang up.
Now, there has been some positive this year. We've talked about some of the negatives, but there's been some positive. Scottie Barnes has really, he had that great rookie year, but then last season, a bit of a slump. It was not the development people were hoping for. There was, lots of comments online. But what have you liked? Obviously, this year has been so much better. What have you liked from what you've seen from Scottie so far this season?
Just that he seemed to be committed to getting better as a player. That was huge, and bouncing back after that terrible year last year, the sophomore slump. Adding a 3-point shot, which, like, the guy shoots nearly 6 a game and he's shooting 38%. Like, that's such a weapon for a guy like that to have. I know the numbers were even higher and it's fallen back to earth a little bit, but you have to respect it. And you can't just leave him and go under screens and stuff like that. Like, he steps into it with confidence. So he's added that. Obviously, we knew the playmaking was there. He's just getting more reps as sort of like the lead ball handler, which has been great to see. And him, I'm just convinced this kid is such a vibes player. Like, when the mood is light and the ball's zipping around and maybe there's of course there's going to be pressure and there should be pressure to win, but like, he does seem to play with a joy, and that was gone last year. And now, was that coaching? Was that other, vet players on the team? Whatever the reason was, it wasn't there from him. And so it's cool to see that spark back because I feel like he's just one of these type of players that has to play like that. And for the most part, we've seen, through 40 games, he's been incredible. Like, he's a 29-6 guy with great defense, and the shooting numbers up across the board. That's a young, 22-year-old guy that you can obviously build around. And there's no doubt you hear all the Raptors, like front office guys and Darko and that talk about him. They just talk him up. Like, I think Darko even went so far to say, like, he could be the face of the league, right? Like, maybe that's a little stretch, but multiple-time All-Star, flirting with All-NBAs? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's been great to see this year.
So you said multiple-time All-Star. I don't think I've heard you guys do your All-Star picks yet. Do you think Scottie Barnes is going to make the team? Obviously, not a starter. That would be impossible. But coaches, do you think they'll vote him in?
I think he will get some votes. Will he get enough? Look, the record's going to kill them. Like, he's really going to hurt his chances. If the Raptors' record is flipped and they're 25-15, then it's a no-brainer. He is. They tend to look at the standings when the coaches make these picks and go, yeah, he's having a good year, but this person's having a similar year and they're on a much better team, right? Whoever that is. He's gonna get. Oh wow. To me he screams injury replacement. Yeah. If it comes to that, so I will say. I guess I'll go on the record and say no. He won't be selected that initial batch, but I could see his chances of an injury replacement maybe getting in there. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think he's really just kind of on that cusp of
so close.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hopeful, but there's some time for that.
Like Jaylen Brown is going to be picked over him, Yeah. Jimmy Butler, maybe not because he missed a lot of time, but Bam, of course, is going to be picked. Like there's things like that. You start going through these teams and it's like, ooh, maybe, if he had more wins, yeah, but yeah, it'll be close.
You mentioned the vibes as well. Obviously, fun vibe is having a Canadian on the team, and not just Canadian, because there's been lots of Canadians, but a Canadian who's really kind of a scorer, more of a not quite a star player, but more of a star, right? Like he's going to grab the headlines. How fun has it been to watch, a guy from Mississauga, RJ Barrett, playing really well in his first few games with the Raptors?
It's been incredible. I mean, my only concern with RJ, and it has been his entire career, is like, when does the roller coaster start to come down a little bit? That's who he's been for really the entirety of his NBA career. He has these months and weeks where he looks like, and you can squint and talk yourself into it being like a maybe not the number one guy on the team, but a second and third guy easily. And then he has these lulls where he can't score, and he sort of like, you forget he's out there sometimes. Now that hasn't happened since he's been with the Raps in 8 games. He plays a lot of minutes, scores nearly 20 a game, shooting 56% from the floor, 44 from deep. I mean, if those numbers hang around those levels, then yeah, he's proven to be a second or third best guy in this league on a team, So it's been awesome, and it's cool as hell that he's Canadian, one of the best Canadian players we've had on obviously the Raps for sure. And him coming off of what he did with the Canadian team in FIBA and that sort of bringing it into this season, it's been so cool to see. And for him to do that in Toronto, you can tell he's having a blast, like playing in front of his home country fans.
Telling Emmanuel quickly to stop at Osmos was quite entertaining.
Yeah, that's
too.
true.
I don't know if you saw that.
That's
I mean,
great.
Osmos is good, but I don't know if that's your first stop when you come. But
little surprising, but hey, if he's a fan, he's a fan.
You mentioned just more on the good vibes. Quickly, also, the way he's played, obviously excellent, but also another guy who's just kind of, he's always got a smile on his face when things are going well. He's dancing, doing a little bit of the skip. Comparing this to last year, I think the record as it goes is probably going to be worse. I think that's safe to say. But it has, to your point, seemed like a much more enjoyable team to watch. And going forward, you're probably at best going to be a play-in team. But there's something to that, especially with the fact that you can say, well, we've got some young players. This isn't our year, but there could be better years.
Yeah, and like Quickly's playing for a contract too, and he's gonna warrant one, and he's gonna get paid, and rightfully so. And he's only 24, and yeah, man, you talk about the guy playing with joy as well, like you said, hits those threes and starts skipping back, and he can catch fire. He's one of these guys, like when he catches fire, it's really fun. It's like one of those lights out games. Like he's gonna have a couple 40-point games in him, like no doubt. Like he's just one of those streaky guys. He's shooting like 47% from three with the Raps. He must be loving, no longer Tibbs being his coach, and Darko's got to be a completely different vibe. So yeah, like the good thing for the Raps, I guess, if you want to like call it a good thing, is like they're going to be in a play-in hunt because the Bulls are not all that inspiring. The Hawks are definitely not all that inspiring. The Nets have completely fallen apart. The Magic have fallen back to earth a little bit, even though they're up. Like, there's going to be a chance to play in one of these games. But then again, we did that last year, and we got beat by, DeRozan's daughter screaming loud at the free throws that we were attempting. So I know you wanted to forgot about that, but I haven't. So I came into this season thinking the Raptors were not going to be good. I was one of the rare sort of Raptors fans in the national media, I think, sort of saying that. And it's unfortunately come true, and we're going to be a 30 to 35 win team. And, we'll see what happens with Siakam, of course. But, it's not good enough. But at least we have some exciting, young, offensive-minded guys, which you have to have in this league. Like, you have to have guys that can score. Like, you got to play defense, don't get me wrong, to win games. But you just like the way the game is played now, you have to have 2 or 3 guys, if not more, out there that can actually be a threat to score, dribble, shoot, obviously from distance. So it's at least we're on the come up, I think, with this squad that they're building here again. Hopefully it's a quick reset.
The other bad news that might hurt the quick reset is last year when the Raptors traded for Jakob Poeltl, they traded this year's draft pick. Yeah. You think there's any merit, because that is, I believe, top 6 protected.
Yep.
I believe, is there any merit to like, okay, we're not winning it. We're barely a play-in team. Should we just kind of drop down? But is it just those other teams are just way too bad? There's no point.
Wrong year to try that. Yeah, because any other year, I would say absolutely do that. Help your chances to keep that pick. But not this year, because, there are 5 just straight up garbage teams in this league. And I'm talking about the Pistons, the Wizards, the Hornets, and then the Spurs and the Blazers. And then the Grizzlies are just like absolutely been killed by injuries. So they will probably at the end of the year be one of those teams near the bottom. And so then the Raptors are there, but you'd have to really commit to not winning many games from here on out to help your chances by not that much. That's the difference. Like maybe they get lucky. Maybe they jump up there with whatever percentage will be. But to lean into it, I wouldn't. If anything, just like convey the pick and move on. And maybe that's even for the best in sort of what they're telling you is a bad draft too and all that. Like I never know. I'm not like a draft expert, but I just don't think there's any need to worry about being bad. First off, we're already bad, and we can't be as bad as some of these bottom dwellers.
Yeah, despite losing to the Pistons, it's hard to be worse than the Pistons.
Right, well, we handed the Pistons a win because we made the OG trade, and then we were short on guys, and we still barely lost that game. I think losing by 2. So we snapped that streak, and the Pistons would have got that streak up to 34, 35 games probably if we hadn't had some guys missing. So, yeah, I hope Troy Weaver and the Pistons sent Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster a gift basket or something for that one.
They should, maybe some of those Wingstop wings.
Yeah, that's right. They had at least some gift certificates or something. Yeah, coupons.
Yeah, there you go. The only thing that's going to be kind of, if they do trade Pascal, really it's the end of that championship era. I know there's still, Chris Boucher was on the team, but really as far as rotation players who were on that championship team, with OG gone now, he didn't play in those playoffs, but he was part of that team, and if Pascal goes, that's really it's the end of the era.
Yeah, that would be. You're right. I even forgot about Boucher still being on that actual championship team. We never even see Chris Boucher barely anymore. Every once in a while, he goes 7 for 7, and you're like, oh, he's good. Why isn't he playing? No one's really sure. Yeah, look, it happens. I'm still riding the high from a 2019 championship. Got a couple more years, I feel like, of leeway with that, but it's a what have you done for me lately type of world we live in and league. And yeah, the reset has to happen. It is happening. And hopefully, the Raptors start getting back to those sort of 50-win team ways. Remember how long the Raptors were racking up 50 wins, always running into LeBron, getting bounced, and how frustrating that was. Well, it's a lot better than, winning 30 games and not being quite bad enough to hit a super high pick, but obviously not being good enough to really do anything, whether you're just playing in a play-in and no one has any faith that you would win a series. So Take me back to those 50-win days, and hoping we would beat LeBron. But I hadn't really thought about that. If Siakam does get moved here, that'll be sort of the end of a chapter there.
Well, like you've got in the background there, you've got a Raptors championship, a piece of paraphernalia there, and
Yep.
I keep I've got also a photo of the championship team next to my TV. So when they're having one of those frustrating losses against Utah, you can just look and dream of the better days.
It's absolutely true. We have to do that as sports fans. That's right. That towel is from the locker room in Game 6. That's why it's framed and everything. Yeah, Trey was there, and he went into the locker room after the game. I was like, you got to give me something. Bring me something back. While I was partying in the streets of Toronto. So he brought that from the locker room, and got it framed and everything. So you're right. Got to remember those incredible memories.
Hopefully that keeps any sort of smell from getting out. I don't know what was
going on. It was actually in pretty good condition. I feel like he got a clean one. I'm not sure if anybody used that or not. Maybe he had a little champagne maybe soaked on it, which is what you're looking for.
As it should.
Yeah, exactly.
As it should. Now, one of the great things about the podcast you do, No Dunks, is how you guys do great analysis, but you're also very fun. It's also just like a great podcast for having those questions that you ask with your friends over a beer. So I'm going to ask you one of those questions. Obviously, exciting year in Canadian basketball. The men's team qualified for the Olympics for the first time since 2000. So as we're getting ready for that Olympics, I'm going to ask you what your Canadian dream team starting five would be. You got to pick your top five.
Okay.
What's it going to be?
Okay. Wow. Now, do you want... So I guess I'm committing sort of to positions here, right? Like I'm trying to build a...
Yeah. Which is
real
tough.
Good squad. Okay, this is good. Wow, I got a lot of guards. This is the issue.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I got way too many guards. But I'm going to have to pick... I might have to go small on this team. We might just have to run and gun. So
I respect it.
Captain Canada is definitely on the squad.
Yep.
Steve Nash is there. But then, maybe when it's all said and done, the greatest Canadian player of all time, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm getting ahead of myself, I know, but he has to be there. So it's Nash and SGA. And then I really want to put, for my three, I'm going to be really small, but I want Jamal Murray there.
He's the next best player.
I know.
He's the next best player.
So, I love my guy Dylan Brooks, even though no one else does. Love the defense, but he'll come off the bench. So I will go Jamal. Then, now it gets a little tough. Like, when we start getting into the forwards, there's not the most biggest names. Okay, hold on. Just for pure respect, I'm going to go Kelly Olynyk.
Yep.
Okay. He's going to be there. He will be in either my 4 or 5. And then, do I go Bill Wennington? Ooh. Do I go Jamal McGlure? Do I go... no, I can't go that small. Yeah. It's, I guess Boucher is a big that I could sort of go with. Give me Bill Wennington.
Okay.
Let's
I like
do
it.
I mean, it's a different... And then today's game, it probably wouldn't work that well, but Bill Wennington, Kelly Olynyk, Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Steve Nash. But then we got a great bench. We got RJ, we got Dylan Brooks, we got Rick Fox maybe. We got tons.
The only... I did my own little lineup, and I agree with you. I think, you got to have Shai, you got to have Nash, and you got to have Jamal Murray. Okay. The only difference I have Olynyk, but I think I'd put Tristan Thompson in there.
Ooh, Tristan Thompson.
Peak of his career, the kind of player that you would love around a Steve Nash and a Jamal Murray and a Shai. That's probably where I go. But I do like Bill Wennington. That gives you some more size, some big size.
Yeah, he's a big dude. Bill Wennington. Great guy, too. Great Canadian. But you're right. Tristan, I did forget about him. There's really no one else. Dwight Powell. And
maybe Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins, obviously not great lately, but at his peak... very talented scorer, but you already have a ton of scoring.
Yeah, scoring.
We
need guys doing the dirty work. That's why Dwight or like you said, Tristan. That makes more sense. And then we got Mathurin coming off the bench. We got Sharp coming off the bench.
Oh yeah.
We got Dort. Oh, what about Lou Dort? Let's go crazy small. Put him at center.
There you go. It's the new world.
Listing all these guys. I'm getting excited for Paris. I don't want to get my hopes too high. It's pretty cool that they're going to be there, and hopefully a lot of these guys play. But that was incredible, them beating America and winning a bronze.
It was so good. And the great news, like you said, all these names we just mentioned, a good chunk of them are players who are playing right now. It's not the history. There's some good players in the history, but like as far as the players that are available now, a lot of those guys are players who could suit up for Canada this year. So it's going to be tough, with the USA men's team bringing their, probably looks like their A squad. It's not going to be a repeat of the FIBA World Cup, but it still could be a good showing.
I hope it is. I just want them to compete. You obviously want to see them pick up a couple wins. Again, I don't think people are going to be like, oh, they're going to win gold. I don't think those will be the expectations, and that's fair. But you're right. The pipeline of like even some bigs, which we need on this team, Zach Edey, Leonard Miller, a couple like Omax Prosper, like as a wing guy, like hopefully moving forward, and these guys get NBA experience, and they've done a good job with Canada basketball trying to get these guys like hyped to actually represent their country, and I think it's led by these star guys. Like it says something when Shea wants to be there and Jamal wants to be there, and Dylan Brooks and so on. So yeah, I mean, hey, I hope I see it. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever see a Raptors championship, if I'm being completely honest. We saw it. I hope one day that 10, 15, 20 years that Canada basketball, the men's team, wins a gold medal and actually takes down a quote unquote dream team. Why not? Why couldn't we have our own dream team?
I believe in it. I believe in it. And another player you mentioned, Dylan Brooks, if he plays like he played in FIBA, who knows what could happen.
Oh, I mean, he's the ultimate wild card. The guy put 39 points on America's head. He cooked them.
And like against good players. It wasn't like it was a bunch of schmucks. It was still their B squad, but it was good players.
These are all NBA players, and it was amazing. It was like the best game of his life. Made him a Canadian hero. And again, he's like Dylan Brooks is one of these funny Canadians where it's like he doesn't feel like he's Canadian for whatever reason, just because of like the way he holds himself, his attitude, and his punchable face. But man, he repped for Canada, man, and I hope he does it again in Paris.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't have that nice guy stereotype, that's for sure.
No, which is good. We need some guys like him on
you got it. Now, of all those players we mentioned, I know you've got quite an impressive collection of Canadian basketball cards. What's the collection at right now? How's that going?
It's going well, yeah. So I got back into cards. I mean, like most people as a kid, I opened and ripped wax, ripped packs. I didn't get any. I think I had like a Shaq rookie, I'm sure, back in, the early 90s, an Alonzo Mourning or something, but whatever. I wasn't in it that long. And recently I've come back. I've probably been only collecting for maybe 6 months or so. And I was like, well, what am I going to collect? I want to have something to like focus on. I just don't want to just pick Raptors players or whatever. Like that's too big. So I was like, I'm going to try and get rookie cards for Canadian players and eventually try and, I guess, collect them all, because it felt like an attainable sort of pool, right? It's a decent amount. I don't know what it's at, like 50 or whatever, but it's something you can add to, and there's always players coming in, so it's something you could just always maintain. So anyway, I've had a lot of fun doing it. I've got a bunch of Steve Nash, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray. Probably my favorite is a Leo Routens rookie card. Yeah, Gem Mint 9 too, like from like 83 star. Like this is an old card, so it's in really good condition. So that one was cool. When I saw that one, I was like, okay, I gotta get that. Got a Bill Wennington, it's signed. So it's fun. Yeah, just something to like, get on eBay, get on some of the auctions, and like, just look for Canadian rookies. That's all I do.
I love it. I actually do have one signed Canadian rookie card. I got the signed Dylan Brooks card. So I'm a little far behind you, but I got that, and I think I got a Jamal McGlory, not rookie card, but a Jamal McGlory card. So I
just got a Jamal rookie card.
Nice.
Not signed or anything, but I got one of those in. And what's the big one I would say I need? I do have one Lou Dort, but I'd like to get a good Lou Dort, like rookie. Either a patch or a signed card or something like that. And there's a couple, like I don't have everybody. Like I got a couple Andrew Nemhards. I just got a Tristan Thompson. That's coming in the mail. I need a good Wiggins. I actually need a good Wiggins rookie card. And they're a lot pricier than I would have thought they would be. Yeah. They're like, at least some of the ones I looked at, I'm like, oh, I want to spend that much on an Andrew Wiggins rookie card. I mean, I'll wait a couple years until that comes down. But,
yeah, that's fair. You think this year the price might have been going down a little bit?
I would think so. It was still a couple $100, so I was like, whoa, okay. But we'll get one. We'll eventually get one.
A little off topic, but what do you make of all these, NBA analysts who are, anytime, you're talking about a Pascal Siakam trade, they're like, well, you got to trade him Andrew Wiggins because he's Canadian.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
No offense to Wiggins.
No, of course
we already got RJ. We can't have too many Canadians on the team.
Yeah.
No, if they're trading with the Warriors, I prefer it to be Chris Paul's contract. I actually don't mind him maybe, mentoring quickly a little bit. I'll take that. His big contract to make the money work, and then we're talking Kuminga, Moody, one or two of them, maybe a pick. That's a lot more intriguing to me than paying Wiggins whatever he's got left on his deal. Like, it's a lot of money for a guy that right now I don't know what's going on off the floor or what's happening with him mentally, but like, guy looks like a shell of his former self. So
yeah, and it's for a few years too, so that makes it a little tough with Chris Paul. You have him for the year, and then your cap's gone, so
exactly.
It's good. But I've got one final skill testing question for you. Obviously, you're a hardcore Raptors fan, but I've got a pair of shoes here on display. They're a signed pair of shoes from a very, maybe not to you, but to most people, an obscure Raptors player.
Okay.
I'm going to see. I'll bring it down. See if you can guess, and I'll give you a hint. The player was on the Raptors from 2014 to 2018.
Okay.
The other. Ooh, that's a stretch here.
Looking at this.
Okay, here we go. Here's the other shoe looks better here.
Oh wow. Okay. 14 to 18.
Yep, size 14 shoe. KD's supposedly
size 14. Interesting. That's not that big.
Supposedly game worn, but I am going to guess. Here's another hint. They were probably a G League game worn.
Oh. But they made it to the big league.
They made it to the big league. They played some games on the Raptors for sure. Fans would have been chanting for them to come into the game in a blowout.
Ooh, this is good. 14 to 18. Okay, so I'm drawing a blank on the G League part here because your mind immediately goes to the big G League guys, your Van Vliets, your Siakams and stuff like that.
Yeah, and never really, he bounced around a little bit after the Raptors, but not really an NBA rotation player.
Right, and not Canadian.
Not Canadian.
Ah, man. And big man or small? Like,
big in size, but a forward.
Wow.
Very, I'll give you another hint here.
Bruno.
Yeah, you got it. Bruno Caboclo.
That's the G League. I knew I was like forgetting like a main G League guy that people loved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruno.
So
Caboclo,
I tell people they come into my house and they say, "Oh wow, signed shoes. Who are they?" And I say, Bruno Caboclo, and they go, "Oh, okay." Cool.
I mean, hey, 2 years away from being 2 years away. That was Bruno's thing.
There we go. For people like us, it's got some special to it,
I think. I mean, he plays, I'm pretty sure, for his national team, for Brazil, and I think he's actually, one of their better players. Mm-hmm. He's 28 years old. I just looked it up. Wow, time flies.
That's crazy.
Remember when he was 19 on the Raps. Wow, that's incredible.
So, and the other thing is, they're a lot more rare. A NBA game-worn shoe from Bruno Caboclo, there's tons of those from other players, but...
Oh, man. Yeah, it's true. How many are... See, that's a great point. Look, I'm sure there's a Brazilian fan out there. Like, look at me with us with our Canadian cards. There's a Brazilian fan out there. Raptors fans for sure, like yourself. Wow. Man, I remember when there was promise. There was, the hope was this guy was like Giannis 2.0. Like this, like, unheard of, just freak athlete.
Yeah.
Didn't pan out to be that, but I'm looking at his basketball reference. He played for the Kings a little bit, the Grizzlies a little bit, and then he had those cup of coffees with the Rockets. Wow, that's a good trivia question right there.
Well, I asked, I had Amir Johnson on recently, and I asked him, and he actually played with Bruno very briefly, but he didn't guess right. So you're the first person to guess correctly.
Wow, I beat Amir Johnson.
There you go.
Good to know.
Awesome.
How was Amir? He must have been incredible.
He was a lot of fun to chat with. He's coaching for the G League Ignite now, and
cool.
It was cool to kind of talk to him about that experience, and also obviously, I forgot when I was interviewing him, I asked him about what it was like because he embraced Toronto so much. Mm-hmm. What was it like to see the team win a championship? And then he reminded me, well, it was kind of cool, but also sucked because I was on Philly. Yeah. So I saw my championship hopes going down the drain. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fair point. Sorry to bring that up.
Yeah, that's tough, man. He was so close. So close.
So close. Jay Skeets, such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, if someone out there is listening to this podcast and not listening to No Dunks, that's kind of insane. They're probably just a family friend of mine who's doing a nice thing and listening. But otherwise, I'm sure they're listening, and if they're not, they should be. Such a pleasure to have you on, and best of luck with the many, many more episodes you guys got coming out.
Appreciate it, Philip. Thanks for having me on, man. And go Raptors, and also come Paris time, go Team Canada there.